Good afternoon, everyone. I am the audiovisual archivist. My name is Rebecca Stubbs, and I work here at the State Archives in Raleigh. I run the AV unit with my colleague Ian Dunn. And just some context, this presentation was originally supposed to be in person at an establishment here in Raleigh down the street. And the owner of this establishment asked me to focus on specific sections of Raleigh. So this won't be all of Raleigh's Black history, but the sections that the owner wanted me to speak on. And then we'll have, since the owner was really big on trivia, he wanted trivia in it. I was going to take it out, but I decided to leave it in to help break up all the information. And just to test your knowledge of North Carolina's history, it will be statewide, the trivia. But other than that, let's get started. Black Main Street, East Target Edition. This is the Lightner Arcade and Hotel, which sat at 122 East Target Street. Calvin E. Lightner was a prolific architectural designer, contractor, and was the first licensed Black mortician in Raleigh. Calvin built the Lightner Arcade and Hotel in 1921, amongst other various residential and commercial buildings here in Raleigh and Durham. Born in 1878 in Winnsboro, South Carolina, to Frank and Daphne Lightner. Frank was born enslaved. However, he obtained his freedom through emancipation, while Daphne was born free and was literate. She was listed to be a mulatto. Calvin moved to Raleigh in 1898 to attend Shaw University, ultimately receiving a bachelor's degree of science. Bachelor's of Science degree. Calvin also attended Hampton Institute to continue his industrial education. Calvin's yearning to learn landed him in Nashville, Tennessee, to complete his coursework at an embalming school. While at the Hampton Institute, Calvin met his wife, Mammy. They married and had 4 children: Calvin, Clarence, Lawrence, and Margaret. However, while he was still in school in 1906, brothers Calvin and Rayford established the C.E. Lightner and Brothers Company. His brother Rayford is not documented to have been heavily involved in the company, as Calvin was tremendously more active. The arcade and hotel served as a cultural hub to the Black community of Raleigh, including having a pharmacy, a barbershop, medical and lawyer offices, and was home to the Carolina Tribune, which is currently the Carolinian. The hotel hosted greats such as Cab Calloway, Duke Ellington, and Count Basie. The arcade and hotel thrived for decades until the building was burned down in 1970. However, the area is still a hub. It's just a transportation hub instead of a cultural one. The Go Raleigh bus station was built in its place. And before I move on to the next slide, I'd like to speak briefly about the Carolina Tribune. It published its first issue in 1927 under the guise of Claude Ernest Walker, and in 1933, Hugo Nanton bought Whitaker's publishing company and assumed editorship of the paper. However, in 1940, Nanton sold the paper to Paul Reginald Gervais Sr., who assumed the roles of owner, publisher, and editor. In 1927 on the coast, Gervais' father in Wilmington founded the Cape Fear Journal. In 1941, Gervais decided to change the name of the paper to the Carolinian, and it still publishes under that name to this day. This paper is still in the Gervais family, with his daughter Prentice taking over in 93, her brother Paul in 1997, and since 2016, granddaughter of Paul Sr. has been publishing the paper. The Lightner Funeral Home sat at 127 East Target Street. This business was also established by Calvin Lightner in 1911 and is argued to be one of the oldest African-American funeral homes in Raleigh. In 1959, he passed it down to his sons, Calvin, Clarence, and Lawrence. Clarence directed the funeral home, while Lawrence was a secretary manager. Calvin was involved in the funeral home business and was an officer of the Wake County Burial League. Clarence was also a quarterback for the NCCU Eagles, 1938 to 1941, and he was inducted into the NCCU Sports Hall of Fame in 1985. He was elected the first Black mayor of Raleigh in 1973, but he was the first popular vote since 1947. And he was appointed to the North Carolina Senate by Governor James B. Hunt. The funeral home operated until 2023 when it moved, until 2023 when a fire caused severe damage to the second floor and roof. The bottom right is a photo of the funeral home after it moved to 312 Smithfield Street, which is actually present day 312 Martin Luther King Boulevard. And this is dated circa 1988. The Lightners also had a Lightner Garage for auto repairs, and that was also at 129 East Target Street. This was open in the 1910s, and it was owned and operated by Rayford, Calvin's brother and business partner. Okay, so this is the first trivia question. If you guys want to keep track of your own answers or put them in the chat as one singular chat by the time we get to the end, that'd be cool. I just didn't want to remove it. Trivia. Who was this civil rights leader, and what is the name of the Black community he established? I got the Jeopardy going in my head. Okay. Moving on. The Hamlin Drugstore, established by Captain James E. Hamlin, who served in the Spanish-American War, and he also attended Shaw University. In 1904, he opened People's Pharmacy, which originally stood at 13 East Hargett Street. During 1910, the drugstore underwent a name change and became what is now known as Hamlin Drugs. During 1920, Hamlin decided to move his pharmacy into the Lightner Arcade and Hotel, where it thrived for decades, ensuring the health of the Black community. The drugstore sold in 1957 to John M. Johnson and Clarence Coleman. The pair decided to have the store relocated to its present-day location, which is the bottom right image here, 126 East Hargett Street, and it is still here. It is still here. After 60 years of service, Johnson retired. At the time, Hamlin Drugs had been the longest Black-owned business on East Hargett Street that was operating. The building is still owned by the Johnson family. However, unfortunately, it sits vacant. However, on the other side, his great-great-great-granddaughter, Hamlin, his great-great-great-granddaughter is continuing his legacy and founded Hamlin Apothecary in Harlem, New York. Terry Freeman, who is a fashion industry veteran and award-winning designer, having made designs for celebrities and high-profile clients, uses raw or all-natural ingredients for her body butter. This process was created by infusing moisturizing butters with oils that have homeopathic and healing botanicals. The Harris Barbershop and College was established in 1930 as just solely the barbershop at this point by Samuel Harris and was originally located within the Lightner Arcade and Hotel. This barbershop is argued to be the oldest in Raleigh, or the oldest African-American in Raleigh. During 1942, the barbershop moved to its current location at 803 South Blunt Street. And when it moved, it established the college and became the one and only barber boarding school. When Samuel passed, his wife Vivian took over the management of the college, and under her guidance, the Barber College continued to excel and grow in recognition. Here's an image of young men training to cut hair. Trivia. Who is this and what is she known for? Give you about 10, 15 seconds before I move on. The Richard B. Harrison Public Library opened November 12th, 1935, with 890 donated volumes, and the Harrison Library was named in honor of a Black actor and drama professor. Molly Houston Lee was the driving force behind the establishment of the library and had served for more than 30 years. Originally in the Delaney Building, where the Remedy Cafe used to be located, the Richard B. Harrison Public Library served African American patrons. It was also established, the overall Delaney Building was established in 1926 by Dr. Lemuel Delaney, and he was the first Black surgeon to practice at St. Agnes Hospital. In 1966, the County of Raleigh decided to merge the library and become part of the Wake County Library System. So Olivia Rainey Library and Harrison Library merged together, but they maintained separate facilities. In 1967, the library moved to its current location at 1313 Newborn Ave, and that's where it still is to this day. And Molly, I'll go into further detail on her in just a little bit, but Molly advocated and was successful in getting a bookmobile for 8 days a month. They only had it for 8 days a month because they had to share it with Olivia Rainey. Too far. The Grand United Order of Odd Fellows building sat at 115 East Hargett Street. Grand United Order was a fraternal brotherhood for African Americans, which served as both a social club and a charitable institution. It officially began in 1843 here in the U.S. by and for disenfranchised African Americans. The Grand Order focused on morality, temperance, and aiding African American families with proper burials for their servicemen. They also ensured that their widows, families, and children all had proper care. In 1891, the building was purchased and had commercial spaces. So there was the Capital City Barbershop. However, Harris Barbershop came 11 years earlier. Capital City came in 1941. Also located there was the Hargett Street Billiard Parlor, a dentist office for Dr. David P. Lane, and the law office of Fred Carnage. There was also a studio for photography called the Fun Studio. And the Grand United Order of Odd Fellows is not to be confused with the Independent Order of Odd Fellows. The Independent Order was the white counterpart to the Grand. Trivia. The Triangle is home to 4 major universities. What are they? I can't wait to see your answers. Okay. Mechanics and Farmers Bank. 9 men. Richard B. Fitzgerald, Jesse A. Dodson, J.R. Hawkins, John Merrick, Aaron Moore, W.G. Pearson, James E. Shepard, W. Stevens, and Stanford L. Warren all pioneered the Mechanics and Farmers Bank. These were very influential men in Durham, with several buildings and institutions named after them. Stanford L. Warren is actually a library. Well, the library was named after Warren. Mechanics and Farmers was established in 1907 in Durham on West Parish Street. This building was also built by Calvin Leitner, and it is the only one of 2 buildings of Leitner's to still be standing to this day. The Davie Street Presbyterian Church is the second building to still be standing. The Durham location officially opened in August of 1908. However, with the demand for more institutions for the Black community, the Raleigh location was opened in 1923, and this aided the community in having to travel all the way to Durham to make their transactions. In 1929, the stock market crashed. However, the bank continued operations through the crash until it was mandated by FDR that all banks close. When it was time to reopen, Mechanics and Farmers was the first bank to reopen. And it is estimated that this bank is one of a dozen African American banks to survive the Great Depression. And in 2015, the bank underwent a name change and is now referred to as the M&F Bank. The Fourth Ward. The Fourth Ward is the second section I will be speaking on today. And the Fourth Ward was one of Raleigh's largest African American communities, consisting of over 160 acres of land. 935 families lived here with an approximated 1,600 individuals. And here are some main pictures on the screen so you can see the conditions of the neighborhood and just kind of see what it looked like back then. She's cooking. And yeah, let's go to next. All right, here's some more images of the Fourth Ward. Just some everyday life pictures. We have children playing trumpets. We have little girls reading. We also have children playing outside and enjoying themselves. And I wanted to include the pictures on the first screen and these to kind of show to show everything, how even though the condition of the area wasn't the best, African Americans in this community made the best of what they had, and that really ties into the resilience part of the African American community. Oh, trivia. What carnivorous plant, first formally discovered in 1759, is only native to the Carolinas? Here are some more images. We have more neighborhood houses, and you can kind of see how barren the land is right here and dry. This is Richard McCoy, a corner store. And then we just have a group of friends. And these two children in the bottom right, on the bottom right are actually posing on the southwest corner of Cannon and Southwest Street, which is present day Dorothea Drive. And this picture of the two children was taken circa 1914. Okay, there we go. What is the nickname for the barefoot workers who distill turpentine from a pine tree sap? And for an extra point, what city had the most distillers in North Carolina? I'll give you a moment.
Rebecca, I know this name. I know this answer.
Thanks. You don't count. You saw the answers. So the Fourth Ward Urban Renewal Project was a project where the city proposed tearing out the Fourth Ward community to build roads and infrastructure for Raleigh. Now, on the left, and I do apologize, it's sideways, but on the left, we have the proposed plan of what they wanted to do to the area. And here on the right, you have what was there at the time. So you can see where the residents live, the commercial buildings, the institution, etc. One thing I would like to note is that historically, the Fourth Ward was referred to as South Side or slums by the outside community. Historians are fighting to bring back recognition and respect to the Fourth Ward community by correcting the derogatory term for today, tomorrow, and future generations. On the left, here we have Mayor C.B. Jones taking a gold-plated sledgehammer to the first house to be demolished in the Fourth Ward Urban Renewal Project. And this was on February 19th, 1971. Officials felt as if the deterioration of the neighborhood warranted the project. By the time the Urban Renewal Project had finished, nearly 600 homes and approximately 60 businesses were gone. And we have an aerial here on the right of the area shortly after demolition began. And you can see they're still kind of clearing out that area. Post demolition, the city dedicated Heritage Park, where the Fourth Ward once stood. City planners originally wanted to replace all housing that was demolished, but upon completion, 80 units of public housing were built, with an additional 42 erected in 1977. Oop, too far. St. Agnes Hospital was also included in the Fourth Ward boundary. It was established by Sarah Hunter, who was the wife of Dr. Aaron Hunter in 1896. In 1909, they had a new building built, and it was actually built by masonry students from St. Augustine University. In 1937, the hospital received accreditation by the American Medical Association. However, due to the civil rights movement, the hospital was closed in 1961. During its tenure, the hospital trained nearly 700 students. The construction supervisor was John W. Holmes. Holmes joined the faculty at St. Aug in 1904, and he was later promoted to be the institution's superintendent. In addition to his work with the university, Holmes also served as vice president of the Mechanics and Farmers Bank. He was a member of the Raleigh Better Housing Committee. He was also chair of the Raleigh's Negro Citizens Committee and chair of the North Carolina Effort for Negro Relief under the National Recovery Act. And this is the class of 1942 or 1948. And these are just some pictures of the hospital. Okay. What was the name of North Carolina's lost colony? And what was the word that was carved into the tree? Okay. Next. There we go. Mount Hope Cemetery. Mount Hope Cemetery actually kind of has two addresses, which is really interesting. It's huge, but there are two addresses. There are two entrances. One is on 1100 Fayetteville Street, and the other is on 120 Prospect Ave. So this was established in 1872, and it was a city-owned African-American cemetery with approximately 1,500 monuments honoring Raleigh's Black citizens. Over 7,000 people are buried here. This includes Dr. Lemuel Delaney, Captain Hamlin, Dr. Manasseh Pope, the Ford family plot, which has the oldest original monuments, father and son, Reverend Henry B. Delaney and his son. This also includes the Lightner family plot and the Love family plot. In 1977, the cemetery opened for all races. The Washington Grade School. A little bit of background before we jump in. In 1867, American Missionary Society of New York established the school led by Professor Fisk Brewer, who lived for the education of the Negro. Originally located in First Congregational Church, shortly after, the school moved to a two-story wooden building that was designed by Brewer and the Freedmen's Bureau. In 1875, the Raleigh public school system was created. And they were separate at first. Raleigh had a public school system, and then Wake County had a public school system. And in the 1970s, they merged together. So at this point, in 1875, the Raleigh public school system was created, and the school was reorganized as a public school instead of private. Additional spaces were built for the school to accommodate the influx of students. In 1916, J.L. Levister, Shaw University alum, became principal, and the need for a high school increased as both Shaw and St. Augustine discontinued their high school department after 1921. This left younger children without a way to formally advance their education. The realization that additional space was needed was the driving force behind the new building. 1000 Fayetteville Street was chosen to construct the new Washington School, with 30 classrooms, an auditorium, a cafeteria, and a library. Parents and community members weighed in on this decision as well. Built in 1923, however, it did not open its doors for students until the fall of 1924. And this is recorded to be the first public high school for African-American students in Raleigh. 14 new classrooms were added to the main building in 1927, creating a divide between the grade school and the high school. With that extra wing, they were able to split the students up. This school closed in 1953 when the John Ligon High School opened. However, it opened once again in 1982, eliminating the high school portion and operating solely as a junior high school. This school became involved with the magnet program and the gifted and talented curriculum, and it is now known as the Washington GT Magnet School. John W. Ligon High School is named after a well-known educator and community leader. Ligon High opened in 1953, and at the time, because Washington closed, was the only public high school for African-American students. In 1971, the school integrated and it officially became a junior high school. In 1982, Ligon was formally consolidated into the Wake County Public School System and became Ligon Middle Magnet School. Don't let the name fool you. This brand of hot sauce was created in which North Carolina city? Give y'all just a moment. Influential individuals. I could not put all of Raleigh's influential individuals, or we would be here for weeks on end talking about Raleigh's Black history. So I chose a handful that were lesser known, and then one of them I resonate with very deeply. So here we go. William Campbell. William was the first Black student to attend an all-white school here in Raleigh, the Murphy School. His first day was September 9th, 1960. He went on to graduate with honors from Vanderbilt University, and he then attended Duke University for law school. William found himself in Atlanta, and in 1981, William was elected to the Atlanta City Council. In 1993, he was elected 57th mayor of Atlanta and held office until 2002. He was the third elected Black mayor in Atlanta. And I just want to point out for a moment, in this bottom right picture, you can see how happy and happy-go-lucky William is, but you can really see the concern and almost fear on his mother's face and then his family. And this is the picture on the left that actually ran in the paper. Trivia. How many HBCUs call North Carolina home? This is kind of a trick question. All right. Fred Carnage. Fred Carnage was born April 16th, 1894 in Thomasville, Georgia. His father worked on the Atlantic Coastline Railroad, and he was the grandson of someone who was enslaved. Carnage attended Morgan State University, studying law at Howard University. After graduating, Carnage moved to Raleigh for a job, and within 6 months, he moved up to assistant manager for the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company in Durham. In 1932, he passed the bar and opened his office, his law office in Raleigh. His original office was in the Love drugstore. However, a few months later, he moved just down the street to the Oddfellows building. He was only one of two Black lawyers in the city. He stayed at the Oddfellows building for his entire career until he passed. He worked until he passed. He was 93 years young. In 1932, he also organized the Negro Voters League, and nearly 1,500 African Americans had registered to vote. He advocated for a United Services organization here in Raleigh for Black soldiers. With the help of committees, a space was secured in the Mechanics and Farmers Bank. They also used space in the Oddfellows building, in the Lightner Arcade, and this is really a true sense of community. Early in 1938, Carnage, along with Reverend Dr. Harold Trigg and Randolph Johnson, appeared before the North Carolina legislature to request the state of North Carolina relinquish rights to a portion of land and give it to the city of Raleigh to be used as a park. Thus, the John Chavis Memorial Park was officially opened May 10th, 1938. In 1949, he was the first African American to be appointed to the Raleigh Board of Education and held that seat until 1962. On February 6th, in 1962, he was also the first and only African American to be named a member of the North Carolina Advisory Committee to the Chief Protocol, and he served at the pleasure of Governor Terry Sanford. Carnage was also a former superintendent at a Sunday school, a member of the board of directors of the Bloodworth Street YMCA. He was active in the Tuttle Community Center, the Wake County Cancer Society. He was a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, and he was a prominent Mason amongst other various committees and organizations. But let's not forget that first and foremost, Carnage was a lawyer. In the picture from left to right, we have Thomas Hairston, George Samuels Jr., Henry Moss, and David C. Forbes. These four men attended Shaw and St. Aug University. They were arrested for trespassing in February of 1960 at the Cameron Village Woolworths. Yeah. They were protesting the segregated lunch counters. They were doing a sit-in. This picture is from their trial, April 21st, 1960, and on the far right is their lawyer, Fred Carnage. Trivia. What small town was the birthplace of John Coltrane, the jazz saxophonist, band leader, and composer? Okay. Reverend Henry Beard Delaney. Delaney was born in 1858, enslaved in St. Mary's, Georgia. After emancipation, his family relocated to Florida, where he received his early religious training. Delaney then moved to Raleigh to attend St. Aug University. Upon graduating in 1885, Delaney became a teacher and later vice principal. He taught religion, music, and building trades. He supervised the construction of the chapel and the library at St. Aug. In 1889, he was ordained a deacon at the St. Ambrose Church. Circa 1892, Delaney was called to the post of archdeacon for the convocation for the work among colored people in the Diocese of North Carolina. This work earned him statewide recognition. In 1911, Shaw University conferred upon him a Doctor of Divinity degree. Delaney was unanimously elected bishop at a convention in 1915, and he became the first Black bishop in North Carolina, the second in the country. His children, most lived well into their 90s. His children, Dr. Lemuel Delaney, Raleigh's first Black surgeon to practice at St. Agnes, Henry, Bessie, who was an author, Julia was a teacher of music, Lucius was a student, William lived in New York and was an unfortunate victim of police brutality. Samuel was a mortician and a firm partner of Levi and Delaney Furniture Home Incorporation in New York. Sarah, who was better known as Sadie, was an author. Laura was a teacher, and Hubert was a domestic relations judge and was the assistant United States attorney for the city of New York. I would like to focus briefly on Bessie and Sadie. Bessie and Sadie were authors of the Having Our Say, the Delaney Sisters' First 100 Years, and the Delaney Sisters' Book of Everyday Freedom. I highly recommend you all read Having Our Say. Bessie was 104 when she passed, and Sadie was 109. The children in New York were reported by the New York Age newspaper to have been, and I quote, one of Harlem's best known and most successful families. Molly Houston Lee. Molly was born in Columbus, Ohio in 1907. She then received, after growing up, she received her education at Howard University. She was at the time, in 1930, the first Black woman to graduate from Columbia University's School of Library Science. Molly came to North Carolina and began working at Shaw University as a librarian until the Richard B. Harrison Library opened on November 12th, 1935. In 1943, she held a 5-day workshop at Shaw on operating libraries for African Americans. She also supervised Raleigh's school libraries from 1946 to 1953. Then, state librarian Marjorie Beale, who fought to have a full-time African American on staff to supervise the Richard Library, was quoted in regard to Molly, a stimulating influence for Negro library development. In 1951, Molly went on the radio and she told the audience, "A public library is the recorded memory of mankind, serving the community. Its function is to make available to all important and thought in all field of human knowledge and experience, and help each person, whatever his interest may be, to find and use the books and other library materials and facilities which best serve his needs." Molly was known to carry her market basket, which was a basket full of books. It was a mobile library. And she would even take those baskets to the community. If the community could not come to her, Molly would go out into the community to personally deliver them herself. We do have a photograph of Molly delivering books to a patient in St. Agnes Hospital. She fought heavily for bookmobiles for African Americans. When she was successful in obtaining the bookmobile, it had to be shared with Olivia Rainey. However, by 1949, there were 10 counties with bookmobiles for African Americans, with another 13 counties sharing a single bookmobile between both white and Black communities. Retiring in June of 1972, Molly dedicated 42 years of her career to the empowerment of the Black community through the library. She was instrumental in the foundation of the North Carolina Negro Library Association, which dissolved when the American Library Association opened its doors to African Americans. However, 1950 to 1954, she was the second Black woman to be elected at large to serve on the council for the ALA. And on January 26, 1982, Molly transitioned, leaving behind her loved ones and her legacy, which to this day still inspires the Black community and generations of upcoming librarians and archivists. And on the screen, we have a few pictures of Molly. Here she is in the middle, in front of one of the bookmobiles. The transparent images on the left are the bookmobiles out in the community. And now she's just in her desk and browsing the stacks. W.E.B. Du Bois was quoted saying that Molly talked of her library as though it was a living entity of vast importance. Last trivia question. Famous for her reportings of I Put a Spell on You and To Be Young, Gifted, and Black, Eunice Kathleen Wayman of Tryon, North Carolina, was best known by what name? Okay. The Bakers, father and son. Baker Sr. attended A&T University in Greensboro. On December 1st, 1942, Baker was hired with the Raleigh Police Department as the first Black police officer. Even though he was hesitant and apprehensive to accept the job, his warm personality aided him to help bridge the racial divide in Raleigh between the communities. The Raleigh Police Department was in need of additional manpower, as many men were sent to fight in the war, World War II. He was Sergeant at Arms of the City Council, which was responsible for maintaining peace and security in meetings. He was also a security officer for North Carolina State University's games, sports games. And in 1987, the RPD, Raleigh Police Department, dedicated the John H. Baker Training Center in his honor. He had served more than 40 years of service to the Raleigh community. His son, John Baker Jr., was born in 1935, and he was one of the longest sitting sheriffs in Wake County. Growing up in Oberlin Village, he attended Ligon High School. It was truly a house divided. In 1958, Baker graduated from North Carolina Central University and was an outstanding football player, having played professionally for the LA Rams, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Detroit Lions. Baker was named All-CIAA and Pittsburgh Courier All-American First Teams. He was elected sheriff in 1978 and held that office until 2002, totaling 24 years. He was the first Black sheriff in Raleigh since Reconstruction. In 1972, Baker was inducted into the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame and received an honorary doctorate degree from North Carolina Central University in 1994. In 2007, both John Baker Sr. and Jr. were inducted into the Raleigh Hall of Fame. Too fast. Okay. Thank you. And as I stated in the beginning, this is not all of Raleigh's Black history. This is just the sections that the collaborator wanted me to speak on. And here we have just an image of the archive building. And we also have down below the website we hold our digitized holdings at, Flickr, my email, my colleague's email. And yeah, thank you all. Whew. Any questions? And the trivia answer will be after this slide. I have a slide with all the answers. trivia answers.
Rebecca, there is a person who actually had John Baker III as his gym coach, or his or her gym coach in high school.
That's actually really cool. Well, all right. Well, if there are no questions, then I'm gonna let y'all go early. um, yeah, but number 8 was the tricky question. The how many are in North Carolina HBCUs? Technically, there's 12, but only 11 are recognized by the DOE. Yeah. I did have a bonus question, but decided to take that one out. The bonus question was, who can name the most North Carolina counties?